and why your employees are pretending, mostly unintentionally, that things are okay when they're really not. Now, Allera is a leading spiritual life and business coach. She's called the Modern Day High Priestess, and she's shaking up industry perceptions and disrupting traditional business models, activating wealth and elevating conscious leadership among global communities. So, Allera, hi, thank you for joining me. And maybe you want to kind of give us a bit more details, because it always leaves me kind of wondering a little when I read your your bio. It kind of gets me excited, but at the same time, it kind of also makes me question and wonder what it is that you actually get up to.
Yeah, sure. So thanks so much for inviting me on here. So I'm not meant to sit in any boxes, and I very much challenge the norm. So I spent 20 years working in the top 5 global investment banks, sat on trading floors with basically a role as a client relationship manager. Alongside that, through my own healing journey and going for support, help, etc., I ended up retraining as a clinical hypnotherapist and a Gestalt therapist, which is a type of psychotherapy. Then I set my business up, and I basically pulled together my energetic abilities. So I go root into the trauma work, can work very energetically to actually see what's going on, not on the surface level, going deep into the unconscious at root, with the clinical and with the business experience, both in finance and across multiple business realms. So I attract quite a broad range of men and women, generally at the professional CEO, entrepreneur, level. However, I've got psychologists, I've got scientists, and I have artists in my group as well. There is really no limit. It's more about people that are ready to be the change, ready to change their perceptions on the limitations around them and change their lives, really. And I recognize that that is really something that's bubbling in many of these workplaces, is people don't feel enthused anymore. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity happening and a huge amount that needs to shift in the workplace, which is obviously what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of this conversation is actually to try and open up some dark corners of things that people aren't really talking about yet. And I think you and I are both passionate about enabling people to actually have these conversations, but also to kind of awaken this within organizations to help them understand how they can really support their employees. Because as we know, the last 3 years have been phenomenal in terms of the amount of change that's been going on, the amount of uncertainty, and it's not slowing down with first COVID and the war and everything else that's been going on in UK, Brexit, obviously. And there have been massive amounts of trauma happening to us as communities, but also a lot of people going through, death of a loved one or divorce or illnesses, or even just trying to deal with all of the things that are going on in the world. And this is without even thinking about how they've been impacted by, having to suddenly work from home and then dealing with kids or whatever else has been going on for them. So as we both know, this has significantly changed the needs of the workforce and put people into this fight or flight mode. So how have you seen this showing up within your clients, within your businesses that you're working with?
So I've experienced it firsthand. Obviously, when I was in the banks, I went through the 2008 crash. At that time myself, I ended a 7.5-year relationship, cancelled my wedding, changed my life upside down. Whilst all these things were happening, huge amounts of job insecurity. I knew of suicides by men that had lost their jobs at that time. So I've been in it, and that actually was a catalyst for my changing my approach and retraining. So what we're seeing now is huge amounts of efforts towards wellness, but there needs to be more. So the statistics that generally get analysis on is around, productivity, looking at, engagement. But I think we need to zoom out and have a very different viewpoint of the humanistic perspective of the workplace, the neurodiversity of the workplace. And I say that not just for people that would class themselves as neurodiverse, but if we take that layer behind it, we're looking at actually trauma and our ability to deal with certain circumstances whilst having experienced trauma in the past. Back when 2008 time, it was quite hush-hush to go and get therapy. It wasn't really talked about, and now people get help. And I think corporates, the banks that I've worked with, have amazing benefits, processes and everything in place. However, what I see is that we need more people to be trained as trauma-informed. because trauma is multidimensional, meaning that you can get triggered around financial trauma, going through a recession now, perhaps as a parent that you experienced in 1987 as a child when you witnessed your parents going through it. So this stuff's coming up. We've had 3 years of the most intense, consistent amount of trauma, meaning collective trauma, personal trauma, which could be death, divorce, illness, all sorts of different changes that have needed to happen whilst functioning. That's like going to war for 3 years. So that has an effect on our nervous system. So the fight or flight, it means that if we are stuck in fight or flight, we are in a state where we are also perceiving danger all the time. So it affects our productivity, our focus, our sleep. When we don't have the downtime and our environments don't support us actually having the integration and the deregulation that we need in our nervous systems after traumatic events, and that's pretty much everywhere at this time, we get to burnout. And when we look at people that are highly functioning and would be classed as neurodiverse, generally burnout is because they don't listen to the needs of the hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I need to stop. I need to give myself space to stop. They just keep going. And this tends to be
one thing that comes up to me as you say that is actually none of us are trained how to do this. We're not taught at school how to actually listen to ourselves. And so, I mean, I've been through burnout. I know what this is like. I'd run all the amber traffic lights till I got to red, and then sat in the doctor's office and thought, well, how did I get here? And it is that cumulative buildup of stress over time, and actually not understanding or not knowing the signs, not knowing how to deal with it, how you switch off, and getting to the point where you just almost normalize this type of fight or flight as being just the norm.
Well, it's unconscious because it is your unconscious running the show. So if you can imagine, most of our workplaces are based on mindset, everything at the top. It's all about, processes. If we put, 1 and 1 together, we get 2. Humans don't work like that. And our workplace is going to become even more further neurodiverse and diverse. It means that for us to keep people that, are going to be the most creative, expansive in these environments, they cannot be in prolonged periods of this state, regardless of, the amount of change that's about to happen in the coming years, because there is a huge consciousness evolution, and that's requiring rapid change, rapid pivoting, need for new ideas. Have you ever tried to create a new idea or a solution whilst you're in the thick of it and you're triggered and you're overwhelmed? No. And this is the key thing. Most people, until they go through the breakdown or go and get therapy, have not done the inner work to even know that it's them that have something within them that's triggered. They blast it out and believe it's that team member, that manager, because they aren't aware of their interconnectedness with themselves, but also how to regulate. And when we get really into the deep parts of this is childhood wounding. This is the effects of unmet needs. So if you're an adult that didn't get it as a child, which is 95% of us, you don't have the toolkit to actually function now. So our workplace needs to have a new educational viewpoint that trauma affects all of us. Those that have had extreme trauma in the past will find it harder to be able to function when they have prolonged trauma again. They might not bounce back in the same way, and we need to be aware of that. In the summer, I had a birth activist on my podcast because I wanted to bring this into the awareness of the corporates, because the NHS is struggling. Now, if you go into a hospital and you've had a baby in the past 3 years, the men that are with you are likely to have witnessed you having trauma, so vicarious trauma, and the women are likely to have had trauma as well, whether it's invasiveness, not getting needs met. The system is broken. So if we can consider, if you were a CEO or a business owner, or you are running a large corporate, do you know the stats on a deeper level of these pieces that have affected, like life events? Do you know the life events of your staff? Do you know who has had children in the past 3 years? Do you know any of these things? Because actually that gives you the depth into the next layer of the actual metrics that you're looking at. Without going into anything massively invasive, because I think we've talked about this before, people are not sharing their problems. And the Priory was saying that 71% of people worry about actually sharing with their bosses that they have a mental health issue because they don't think it's going to be received. And we already know 40% of men will wait until they're suicidal or having negative self-harm thoughts before seeking help. So this is like the silent volcano, I feel, that is not on a micro level, it's a macro level. And if we try and ignore it and just lip service it, we're going to either lose staff, or we're going to, as in they have the silent resignation and leave, or we might actually see, sadly, some events happening where people take their lives. And I feel that collectively, as you know, the work family, we have a higher responsibility to start to look after our tribe and start to look at that in a very different viewpoint.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like two things coming out from you. We need to rebuild trust within our organizations, and we need to rebuild sort of this kindness, this connection with other people that we can share in what's going on, so that it's not that we need to know everything as leaders, but we do need to understand what our people are going through so we can help them deal with what it is that's going on in their lives. And I feel that this is, like you say, being lost. People are shutting up. They're not sharing at the minute. And this is why it's almost sort of what we're saying is invisible to leaders, actually the extent of what's going on, because all the internal surveys really are still showing everything's fine. And you and I know when we first have our first talks with any potential client, everything's fine until we can get them down a couple of levels, which takes building up trust. It takes an understanding. That only then do you start being able to open this kind of wave of actually what's really going on. And this is why it really is, as far as I'm concerned, invisible to what's, to the senior leaders. And that's why I think both you and I know what we're actually hearing is so similar from people, that there really has to be a wake-up point to help businesses really deal with this. And this takes an investment, not necessarily, well, money, yes, but time. It takes thought behind how to do this. So what would be your maybe top three ideas for senior leaders as to how to either start this conversation or start kind of awakening their business to maybe the things they can't see right now?
Well, I think the first thing is know yourself. I think this needs to be a key thing for leadership. When you've got a demographic of men that have all gone to the same university, same circles, and have not done any retrospective work, you have so much unconscious bias that you're not necessarily going to have the level of empathy that's needed. So there's that piece. Secondly, I actually work with a number of CIOs, CEOs in these positions, and they are suffering themselves. Yeah. So they're coming to me, and I, just by the nature of the work, I go very deep, very quick. So there's no kind of hiding, because they're ready for that level of alchemy, that transformation. If they're experiencing those issues as a human being that has a relationship, regardless of your job, your career, your status, it's everywhere. So when we start to have that level of, okay, wait a minute, I've gone through these things, what's the rest of the community that's working for me going through? So I feel that we need to start removing stigma. We need to start having better understanding of life events. Would be a very quick thing that people could really drill into. I think you need to understand in your communities who is either diagnosed or classified as neurodiverse, because they're going to have a different need range, in particular around, their working environment and the way that they work to avoid burnout. And actually those changes, I had the neurodiverse teacher on my podcast recently as well, those changes should be really rolled out to everybody, because they could benefit everybody. And I think there's about looking outside the box, like how do you attract talent into this hamster wheel burnout environment? How do you retain talent? And it's like we need to start recognizing that we will probably have to put a time investment. We will need to do different things that are outside of the box now. One of the things that I'm being asked to do is create bespoke wellness programs for select groups, where I'm actually having a one-to-one group session once a week that is unpeeling these layers and helping them reset. So they're kind of like, well, if I can do that in an hour, and now I start to learn these tools myself, I can actually take responsibility for how I'm showing up and how I feel. And that means that benefits the workplace, the relationships, the home, everything. It's perception. Yeah. So I think it's recognizing it's a completely radically new, elevated perspective, because we're going to need the dynamic change makers. We're going to need the people that are the thought leaders. We're going to need this in the coming years, because every area of society is rapidly changing. If we look at how quick technology changes, we can't deal with things the way we're doing without it breaking somewhere. And I feel that after working in the banks for so many years, often what tends to happen is we, sticky tape everything together. We wait until somebody leaves. Then it takes maybe a year to, recruit someone else. The rest of the team are burnt out. Somebody else leaves. You've just about got someone new in. We've got to change this whole reactive firefighting approach to how we manage our team and our ecosystem, because I feel that now there's so many opportunities for people to create side hustles or go online and create a coaching business or whatever else. It's not like they are only down to one or two different job availabilities. So it's like, okay, I might be really burnt out here, but that might be the shove for me to go and do something myself. So I feel that there's many layers of this, and I think making it a communication that changes the dialogue that's going on in these organizations could really re-engage people, because they want to know that you care, and they also want to know that if I'm helping you doing this, it's for the greater good of all of us. I feel that there's a real purpose activation in people. They want to be part of the change. So if you sit there and don't do anything, then why am I going to be motivated to work for this employer that's archaic, when this guy over here is he's getting heard, and his ideas are getting heard, and it's helping people? I mean, that is going to be the cohesiveness of the workplace, I feel, in future.
I mean, you brought up so many things that are obviously important to me, and you and I have discussed this numerous times. Is this contribution actually make it about yourself, but make it not just about yourself, about how you elevate other people, how you bring other people out, because you've got to do the work for yourself in terms of creating yourself as a more conscious leader. All of us do. We're all on this journey together. This is the journey of life, as you called it earlier, and we're all going through things all of the time. But none of us have really been taught how to deal with it, rather just packing it away in a box and putting it to the side. And unfortunately, that no longer serves anybody. It doesn't serve you, and it doesn't serve your people, whether it's your relationships or anybody.
And the lid's not staying on. The lid really is not staying on. I mean, this whole stiff upper lip in the UK, way of being, that probably affects, a certain demographic age group, 40 and above. Like, we've got to consider, the openness and the change that the younger generation are desiring. It can benefit everybody. And I think that is a big thing. Like, it's not just talking about our problems. It's actually, okay, so what's the toolkits? What are the toolkits that we can bring into workplaces? For example, somebody that is highly triggered, just been through trauma, or neurodiverse could really benefit from going into a room that does not have really bright lights, does not have technology on. It might be certain temperature or sensory. I mean, we used to have prayer rooms in my offices. So why could one of those not be adapted to actually help someone just spend 15 minutes, down, bringing their nervous system back into homeostasis, and giving them some tools that could really help? These are practical things. It's not about great, you've just done your continuous development course, tick a box, and that's it. This is about helping people have a better way of being able to cope in the humanness whilst in the human environment of work. And I think before, we were meant to leave our humanness behind and step in. And one of the benefits of COVID is, we saw the cat and the dog and the 3 kids and the stuff going on in the background. We got to experience each other's messiness. And I think, there is a messiness of the human existence, and we have to allow that. We're not hiding parts of ourselves, because I think that's part of the explosion. It's part of the volcano in any area of our lives as well. It's not just the workplace.
Yeah, what's coming out to me as you talk, and it's something that I talk about, it's almost like we're helping ourselves become better humans so we can help other people more.
Yes.
But you're right, it's bringing together all these different points within a business, that maybe your diversity work streams, your engagement work streams, your work streams on employee retention, hiring new employees. All of this is actually, it all needs to come together in one place within your business.
It's a silo.
Yeah, exactly. At the minute, we've got all these different silos in most businesses, and actually it's about bringing it together, making it part of your strategic purpose, and aligning it with the values that you've got in the business. So the more you talk about it, the more you're open, like you're saying, like giving people that space, giving them permission to open up because they're hearing you doing it. And, it's almost like breaking the barrier between the top levels and the lower levels, so that everybody can feel like they belong. That's what we're desiring most as humans, is to belong. Yeah. And that's what we feel like we've lost.
And it's not just following the leader because we're in this kind of pyramid scheme of hierarchy. It's like, well, who is this person that I'm actually, you know, invested in, because I'm giving my time, my energy, my creative energy by, you know, committing to a job in a certain organization. If the values and the ethos and that person does not show any humanness, I'm going to be less connected and invested in giving of my time, my energy, and my brilliance to an organization. I think that the old system of this, you know, somebody hides away in a corner office, it's not really going to fly going forwards. I think we've been through too much, and there's a lot that needs to kind of shift in that. And also, you know, not all managers are, you know, designed to be managers, even if they were great, you know, employees and great at getting things done. And I think that that, again, also needs to be looked at, because if you don't feel psychological safety in sharing with somebody because you know what their judgments are or you're aware of certain things, it's not going to be safe for you to be all of yourself. And I think this comes back to, in all areas of our life, what boxes and masks have we been using? Because now they're beginning to actually create us illness, mental illness, by holding back parts of ourselves. And unapologetically being able to be authentic, I think, is a key expression that as humans we're really beginning to value more. We're not going to say, okay, well, the job, just because it pays the bills, I'm going to sacrifice that part of myself. I feel that now that uniqueness is needed. I mean, when I was in my last role at Bank of America, I was running my side hustle. I'd already been back to uni and trained. I was being fully myself, which was pretty unique in that environment. My crystals on the desk and talking about all of the exploration of all of the personal development that I was doing. And that was very rare. It was rare. There was nobody else I knew doing that. But actually, each one of us, you know, why would we not allocate something within our benefits packages for personal development? I mean, it's not brain surgery, but it's actually could really, really help engage investment. Because if I'm committed to doing, I don't know, 12 months of work on myself, I'm going to be, the benefits of that are going to be in the office. The benefits of that are going to be for myself. But also I'm more likely to stay with an organization investment if I also have this, you know, there's a parallel to what I get from it. It's not just about the money. The money is obviously really important as well. We've talked about financial wellness briefly, but I think there's so many streams, and all of it needs to be bird's eye view. We need to start looking at things from almost like the future self, looking down, because, you know, the structure is not strong enough now to take us where we need to go.
No, I mean, we've talked about this in terms of, you know, the silos in the business, but this is like the silos we've created within ourselves to serve all these different parts of, you know, who we are, and actually like bringing them all back together, having the courage as well to bring them all back together and say, okay, maybe I haven't been showing up here as I wanted to, but if I'm going to live by who I want to be, then, you know, what needs to change? And for some people, like we said, maybe that's a job. For other people, it might just be, you know, standing up for themselves, or for other people more. It might be, you know, absolutely anything. And like you say, if we can help people invest in themselves, get to know themselves, get to have a bit more fun with what they can do really well, and enable them within the business, then, you know, all these other things that are going on, the stresses actually reduce in the background. We're giving people the opportunity to like disperse the stress through having fun with what they're doing. And I mean, come on, we all spend so much time at work.
Oh, completely. And I think that's what people seem to forget, is you probably spend more time at work with these people than you do your own family and friends. So we've got to also recognize that it becomes a family unit energetically as well. And when you look at kind of group work, you realize we're all projecting our stuff on each other. So if we've got a better understanding of who we are, we're less likely to react and be able to kind of reground and respond to the situation with a different lens. Most people have not been taught how to set boundaries properly without feeling that, oh, she's being aggressive. No, she's just expressing that she's not available for that. Everybody has very weird views on this. Boundaries was my nickname in one of my jobs, and I literally used to help my team because I'd be like, why are we saying yes to taking on the mess of something else? And we become the scapegoat. And it happens on the collective as groups. It happens for organizations. And these are just skills that we didn't learn. Therefore, how can we bring them into the workplace? And although the workplace is obviously not responsible for, reparenting every single person in the organization. When we raise the standards of the emotional intelligence in these organizations, and we provide the skills to assist people in getting there in a way that we're all in this together, it's not that, one's further than the other, and it's none of this hierarchy stuff. It actually is a bit like, wow, I can relax and I can actually be more of me. And I think that that's one of the reasons I'm coming back into more of the corporate realm, is to show what does it mean for me to embody all of myself unapologetically in all these different realms. I'm in finance, I'm in wellness, I'm in business, and I've just come off doing a half-day retreat with women where I'm channeling their next level business and doing money healing. Yeah, I'm on here talking about corporate. You get to be it all. You get to show up in all of your brilliance, because that's what women need to see. That's what women need, permission for. But that permission with all of it comes from self. So ultimately as well, if you're not going to get that option in your organizations, people are going to start looking elsewhere.
Leaving, yeah, exactly. And it's almost taking a long-term mindset for something that could be a short-term or shorter term problem, but actually enabling them to use that as a way to grow through it, so that longer term that they're more fulfilled, they're more content, they know where they can bring value, they know what they can do, so that actually overall, like you say, you're raising the consciousness level of not only your employees but yourself. You're raising the whole consciousness level of the organization, which enables, as I talk about innovation, it enables all these other things that you're probably investing in separately, but actually it all comes back to the same pot as far as I'm concerned. We've got to bring this more holistic approach to solving the problems we've got within the business, and actually just making sure that the employees are really feeling like they belong, they're heard, and they can show up as they are, like this unapologetically you.
Yeah, and it's also thinking about things that if you want innovation, you want somebody to think outside the box, that requires the ability for them to have the space to do it. Right. It's not about forcing an idea out and pushing these things out. And if we look at Richard Branson, I think he talks about intuition being one of his leading edge tools. And I feel that this is something that I've worked with people for the past 6 years now, activating intuition, actually getting to a place where you can take that time and tune into what is the highest, most expansive option here, not what I'm just trying to push out the door to tick a box now. If I take a step back, suddenly it comes through, and it's like, these are skills that we all have, but nobody's allowed us to hone them so we can trust them. But actually, these are really important things that many people are beginning to not ignore the nudges. So if our environments desire a level of creativity, we need to create expansiveness and space for people to step back to receive it, because otherwise you are creating through a level of fear. It's like contraction. And that's again a big piece that I work with conscious leaders, CEOs, a lot of those that are also investing, wanting the leading edge kind of rapid growth, because they know that that is going to have the biggest impact in the changes, the pivoting, and everything else in their businesses and their lives. They're generally into biohacking and looking after their health in certain ways, because I think that's another thing with the wellness. I recently spent time at the Alma Festival at Six Senses in Ibiza, and it was a festival of frequency, and it had all the biohackers, the thought leaders on wellness. Wellness is going to be one of the biggest things bringing business, kind of money, fitness, energy medicine all together. And it's work hubs and different ways of working. So if I'm knowing that I can be in a community that is deeply all tapped into something that's purpose driven, and I can also go to the gym whilst I'm there, or I can do some, co-working, and I can also go and have an IV drip if I'm feeling tired, that's going to create some pretty amazing output. So these things are going to become normalized after they go in at the kind of more higher level. So how can our workplaces create opportunities, not just to wait till you're sick to go to the doctor, but actually have holistic things that give you the opportunity to look after your wellness on a different level in the workplace? I've got a friend who is a sound healer at Harrods, actually, and she was going into workplaces. These are all different tools that workplaces could start bringing into their kind of curriculum that give a toolkit for people. And I think, that it's so multidimensional with everything we've kind of talked at. And there's so many opportunities there. I see this as, rather than, oh my gosh, we're in such a mess, oh my gosh, the old building's being demolished, the new one needs to be built, and let's be part of the change, and let's be, bigger picture, really expansive picture, not short term, I'm not investing, I haven't got the money, because, you're going to be out of the game.
I agree with you. I think the landscape of businesses will change significantly in the next few years because of how you treat your people and how you enable them. Because, like you're saying, intuition, curiosity, all of these like human skills really are on the rise, and they're the way we can actually create a more sustainable future for life on Earth, which means looking after ourselves in a very different way. The old models in terms of, creating draining environments no longer work. And we need to reinvent this. Is why I'm talking about new leadership, but it really is creating those environments where people can thrive, where they can be excited again. Because as humans, that's actually what we want. We want to contribute. So we want to create the environments for people to contribute. So thank you very much for joining me today. If you want to connect with Allera, you can connect with her on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube. I think I'm on everywhere.
So please do, because we will try and continue these conversations. What we're going to do is try and pull more people in, get some more leadership insights. But what we want to do is, like I said, open up these dark places, open up the spaces where other people aren't talking about yet, because we've really got to be able to support each other, raise each other's voices, and really enable people to see that there is a different way to create these environments where people can thrive. Because I think, I'll let you have your say, but I believe 2023 really is the year of contribution. It's the year when we enable one another to be the best forms of ourselves. What's your take?
Yeah, I think this is a big thing for women as well. When we go in and do this inner alchemy, whether it's the generational trauma, whether it's giving ourselves permission to live the lives we want, like not in burnout, we open doors for the next generation. And I think it's, everybody benefits when we actually start making these changes ourselves, whether that's you making the change in the workplace, whether it's you being an ally for somebody else that is trying to be changed, because it's not just about one person doing it. They need the support. Use your voice, use your support, bring your ideas, because, I know what it's like when I'm there with all these bubbling ideas and it's just my voice and I've had to carve things out on my own. But now when, the communities around me, we have a much louder voice together, and that begins to create this ripple change. And I feel that, your purpose doesn't need to be necessarily leaving these organizations. What if your purpose is about alchemizing and shifting and rebuilding these organizations? You're already the expert. The finance industry is going to change, but they need the experts in that industry because they know how to shift it all up and rebuild it. So use that. Put your power in these things. And I totally believe in the potential of everybody at this time. And I see it as actually, it might be scary and chaos, but that is a creative energy that actually we're going to create something amazing out of.
Yeah, occasionally things need to break, and we are seeing things not working, a lot of things not working in the world. Certainly a lot of things that frustrate me. And I, a bit like you, I see it as opportunity. I see it as an opportunity to create something better for everybody, rather than, just create something that serves a few people. And this is really the intention. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fun, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. Bye.